The mining station Kepler 442b hung in space like a broken tooth, its hull scarred by asteroid impacts and decades of neglect. Captain Marcus Chen floated in the observation deck, watching the last transport ship disappear into hyperspace. The blue glow of its engines faded until only stars remained, cold and distant. He was alone now, completely alone. The hegemony had pulled everyone out 3 days ago when the Zephyrian Empire declared the sector a war zone. Standard protocol meant evacuating all non-essential personnel from frontier stations. What they hadn't counted on was Marcus refusing to leave. "Sir, the last evacuation transport is requesting your presence," his AI assistant Aria had informed him that morning, her synthesized voice carrying an unusual note of concern. Marcus had simply shaken his head. "Tell them I'm staying. Someone needs to keep the beacon active for emergency vessels." That was partially true. The navigation beacon did provide crucial assistance to ships traveling through this remote sector. But the real reason Marcus stayed was simpler and more personal. This station was his home. He'd spent 8 years here, watching it grow from a simple refueling depot to a thriving mining operation. He'd survived 3 pirate attacks, 2 meteor storms, and countless equipment failures. He wasn't about to abandon it now because some alien empire wanted to flex its military muscles. The Zephyrians were reptilian creatures from a high-gravity world, standing nearly 3 meters tall with scales that shifted color based on their emotions. Their empire had been expanding aggressively for the past decade, absorbing smaller civilizations and claiming vast territories. Humanity, still relatively new to interstellar politics, had tried to maintain neutrality in their conflicts. Marcus pulled up the station's defensive systems on his tablet. The weapons were minimal: 2 plasma cannons designed more for clearing debris than actual combat, and a basic shield generator that could maybe stop a few missile impacts. Against a full Zephyrian battle fleet, it was laughably inadequate. The communication console beeped. Marcus pushed off from the observation window and glided over to answer it. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the scaled face of a Zephyrian officer, the creature's yellow eyes fixed on Marcus with obvious disdain. "Human," the alien said, its voice carrying the characteristic hiss of its species. "I am Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian war vessel, Crimson Talon. You will surrender this station immediately." Marcus leaned back in his chair, trying to project calm confidence despite his racing heart. "I'm Captain Marcus Chen, commanding officer of Kepler Station. This facility is under Earth jurisdiction and neutral in your conflict with the hegemony." Vextar's scales shifted to a darker shade, indicating anger. "Your neutrality is irrelevant. This sector now belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. You have 1 standard hour to evacuate before we destroy your pathetic outpost." The transmission ended abruptly. Marcus stared at the blank screen for a moment, then activated the station's emergency protocols. Blast doors sealed automatically, life support switched to backup power, and the computer core began encrypting sensitive data. Aria's voice echoed through the empty corridors. "Captain, I'm detecting 12 Zephyrian vessels approaching. Their configuration suggests a full battle group: 3 destroyers, 6 frigates, and 3 assault cruisers." Marcus whistled softly. That was enough firepower to level a small moon, let alone a mining station. "Time to intercept?" "Approximately 57 minutes at their current speed." He had less than an hour to prepare for what would likely be his final battle. Most people would have considered surrender, but Marcus had learned something during his years on the frontier that the Zephyrians clearly didn't understand about humans. When cornered, they didn't break. They adapted. Marcus made his way to the station's engineering section, his magnetic boots clanking against the metal deck plates. The main reactor hummed quietly, its fusion core producing more power than the small facility actually needed. Most of that excess energy was normally vented into space to prevent overheating, but Marcus had other plans. He began rerouting power conduits, his fingers flying over the control panels. Years of maintenance work had given him an intimate knowledge of every system on the station. He redirected energy from life support, gravity generators, and unnecessary systems, channeling everything into the shield matrix and weapons array. Area, I need you to calculate firing solutions for concentrated bursts rather than sustained fire, and see if you can overload the plasma cannons. I don't care if we burn them out after a few shots. Captain, that configuration will likely cause catastrophic system failures. The power surge could give us enough punch to actually hurt something bigger than an asteroid, Marcus interrupted. Do it. While Area worked on the weapons modifications, Marcus headed to the station's small armory. His personal sidearm hung in its holster, next to 3 rifles and a crate of emergency rations. He strapped on the weapon, knowing it would be useless against Zephyrian battle armor, but feeling better with its familiar weight at his side. The communication system crackled to life again. This time, multiple Zephyrian voices spoke at once, their hissing language filling the air like angry snakes. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear enough. They were discussing how to divide up his station's resources after destroying it. Area, are you recording this? Yes, Captain. All communications are being stored in the emergency beacon's memory core. Marcus nodded grimly. If nothing else, Earth would know what happened here. The beacon was designed to survive almost anything short of a direct nuclear strike, and it would automatically transmit its contents to the nearest human outpost if the station was destroyed. 20 minutes remained when the first Zephyrian ships appeared as tiny specks against the star field. Through the station's telescopes, Marcus could see their sleek, predatory designs, all sharp angles and weapon ports. The largest vessel, presumably Vextar's flagship, was nearly a kilometer long. Incoming transmission, Arya announced. Vextar appeared on screen again, but this time he wasn't alone. Several other Zephyrian officers stood behind him, their scales displaying various shades of anticipation and hunger. These weren't just soldiers, they were hunters preparing for an easy kill. Human, your hour has expired. Surrender now, and we will grant you a quick death. Marcus stood up, straightening his uniform. Commander, I appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline. You see, I've got coffee brewing and I'd hate to waste it. The Zephyrians exchanged confused glances. Their translation software was probably struggling with human sarcasm. Vextar's scales flushed deep red, a sign of rage among his species. You mock us? Very well. We will take your station piece by piece and feed your corpse to our war beasts. Good luck with that, Marcus said, and cut the transmission. The first missile impacts came 5 minutes later. Marcus felt the station shudder as Zephyrian torpedoes struck the outer hull. His modified shields held, but warning lights flashed across every control panel. The enemy was testing his defenses, probing for weaknesses. Shields at 87%, Area reported. Multiple hull breaches in sections C and D, but blast doors are holding. Marcus gripped the tactical console as another wave of impacts rocked the station. Through the observation windows, he could see the Zephyrian ships spreading out in attack formation. They were taking their time, confident in their overwhelming advantage. That confidence would be their first mistake. Target the lead frigate, Marcus ordered. All power to forward guns. The station's plasma cannons had never been designed for ship-to-ship combat, but Marcus's modifications had tripled their output. When they fired, twin beams of superheated gas lanced out across space, striking the Zephyrian vessel amidships. The frigate's shields flared and collapsed. The plasma beams cut through its hull like a knife through paper, causing a chain reaction of explosions that split the ship in half. Silence fell over the communication channels. The Zephyrians had expected to face a helpless mining station, not a weapon capable of destroying their warships. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile as he watched the frigate's wreckage tumble away into space. Area, how are our weapons holding up? Port cannon is operating at 60% efficiency due to power surge damage. Starboard cannon is stable but running hot. I estimate we can maintain this output for perhaps 3 more shots before catastrophic failure. 3 shots against 11 remaining enemy ships. The mathematics were brutal, but Marcus had faced worse odds during his military service. The key was making every shot count and forcing the enemy to make mistakes. The Zephyrians regrouped quickly, their remaining ships moving into a tighter formation. They wouldn't underestimate the human station again. Commander Vextar's voice crackled over the communication system, no longer mocking but filled with cold fury. "Clever, human, but now we will show you the true power of the Zephyrian Empire." The second wave of attacks came from multiple directions simultaneously. Missiles, plasma bolts, and kinetic rounds hammered the station's shields. Marcus felt the deck plates buckle beneath his feet as the structure absorbed tremendous punishment. "Shields failing," Arya warned. "I'm detecting multiple system failures throughout the station." Marcus's fingers danced across the control panels, rerouting power and trying to keep critical systems online. The station groaned around him like a wounded animal, but it held together. Barely. "Return fire. Target the damaged destroyer on our port side." The plasma cannons fired again, their beams slightly weaker, but still deadly. The Zephyrian destroyer tried to evade, but Marcus had anticipated its movement. The plasma struck its engine section, causing a massive explosion that sent the ship spinning out of control. 2 down, 10 to go. But Marcus knew he couldn't keep this up much longer. His weapons were failing. His shields were nearly depleted, and the station's hull was taking damage faster than the emergency systems could compensate. He needed a new strategy, something the Zephyrians wouldn't expect. That's when he remembered the mining charges. Kepler Station processed rare minerals extracted from nearby asteroids, and those operations required powerful explosives to break apart the larger rocks. The storage bay held nearly 50 fusion-powered mining charges, each one capable of vaporizing a small mountain. Marcus began typing rapidly, accessing the cargo bay's systems. If he could find a way to weaponize those charges. "Arya, can you calculate a trajectory that would place our mining charges directly in the path of the enemy formation?" "Captain, the mining charges lack propulsion systems. They cannot be fired like missiles. What if we loaded them into the cargo pods, the ones we use for asteroid collection?" There was a pause as Arya processed the request. "That could work, but the cargo pods have minimal maneuverability. The enemy would easily detect and destroy them." Marcus grinned despite their desperate situation. "Not if they're too busy shooting at us to notice." The plan was insane, but insanity had saved his life more than once. While the Zephyrians prepared for their next attack, Marcus activated the station's cargo handling systems. Automated loaders began placing mining charges into the small cargo pods normally used for collecting mineral samples. Each pod could carry 5 charges, enough explosive power to crack a moon's surface. Marcus programmed them to launch on different vectors, spreading out across space like a deadly net. The pod's basic guidance systems would bring them close to the enemy ships, and then... "All pods loaded and ready for launch," Arya confirmed. The Zephyrian fleet was moving into position for what looked like a final assault. All 11 remaining ships had formed a tight attack formation, their weapons trained on the crippled human station. Commander Vextar's voice echoed across space one last time. "Your resistance ends now, human. Witness the fate of those who defy the Zephyrian Empire." Marcus placed his hand over the launch control. "Arya, fire everything we've got left at their flagship. I want their attention focused entirely on us." The station's damaged plasma cannons fired their final shots, beams of energy reaching across space toward Vextar's massive cruiser. The Zephyrian commander had learned caution from watching his ships die, and his vessel's shields easily absorbed the attack. But the shots served their purpose. Every enemy gun turned toward the station. "Launch cargo pods," Marcus whispered. 20 small containers shot out from the station's docking bays, accelerating on different trajectories. To the Zephyrians, they probably looked like escape pods or debris from the damaged facility. Certainly nothing to worry about compared to the plasma cannons that had already killed 2 of their ships. The enemy fleet opened fire with everything they had. The station's remaining shields collapsed instantly under the massive barrage. Hull plates vaporized, atmosphere vented into space, and entire sections of the facility simply ceased to exist. Marcus was thrown against the bulkhead as the command center took a direct hit. Warning sirens screamed, emergency lights flashed, and the artificial gravity failed completely. He floated in the smoke-filled air, watching his instruments die one by one. But the cargo pods were still moving, invisible against the star field and ignored by the enemy ships. "Area?" Marcus called out, but his AI assistant didn't respond. Her processing core had probably been destroyed in the attack. He was truly alone now, drifting in the wreckage of his home, while 11 alien warships closed in for the kill. But Marcus Chen wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. The cargo pods reached their targets almost simultaneously. Marcus triggered the mining charges remotely, using a simple radio transmitter that had survived the bombardment. For a brief moment, space around the Zephyrian fleet lit up like a newborn star. The explosions were magnificent and terrible. 5 enemy ships simply vanished, consumed by nuclear fire. 3 others tumbled away as burning wrecks, their hulls split open and atmosphere streaming into space. The remaining vessels, including Vextar's flagship, were heavily damaged but still functional. Marcus laughed despite the pain in his ribs and the taste of blood in his mouth. 8 Zephyrian warships destroyed by a single human and a mining station. The survivors would remember this day for the rest of their lives. The communication system sparked back to life, damaged but functional. Commander Vextar appeared on the flickering screen, his scaled face twisted with rage and disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed. "You are merely human." "How did you—" "Commander," Marcus interrupted, his voice calm despite their circumstances. "You made a mistake. You assumed that being alone made me weak. But humans don't break under pressure. We get creative." He could see other Zephyrians moving frantically in the background of the transmission. Their mighty battle fleet had been reduced to 3 damaged ships by a single human they dismissed as irrelevant. "This changes nothing," Vextar snarled. "Your station is destroyed. Your weapons are gone. We will board your wreckage and—" Marcus held up a small device, a dead man's switch connected to the station's fusion reactor. "I wouldn't recommend that, Commander. You see, this facility runs on a controlled fusion reaction. If something were to happen to me, well, let's just say you're standing a bit too close to ground zero." It was a bluff. The reactor's safety systems would prevent a catastrophic overload even if Marcus triggered the switch. But the Zephyrians didn't know that, and their fear of human unpredictability worked in his favor. Vextar's scales shifted through several colors as he processed this new threat. His remaining ships were too damaged to safely retreat to minimum safe distance, and he couldn't risk losing his entire command to a reactor explosion. "You would destroy yourself just to kill us?" Marcus nodded grimly. "Commander, you clearly don't understand humans very well. We're the species that straps explosives to our bodies and charges machine gun nests. We're the ones who fly damaged ships into enemy formations rather than surrender. And when you corner us, well, you've seen what happens." The transmission ended abruptly as the Zephyrian ships began withdrawing to a safer distance. Marcus watched them go, knowing this was just the beginning. Word would spread about what happened at Kepler Station, how a lone human had destroyed most of a Zephyrian battle fleet. Some would call it impossible. Others would call it madness. But Marcus knew better. He'd simply reminded the galaxy of something important. Humanity might be new to interstellar politics, but they were very, very good at fighting. As the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace, Marcus activated his emergency beacon. The device would broadcast his survival and request immediate assistance from any human vessels in the area. More importantly, it would carry the full record of the battle to Earth Command. The Zephyrians thought they'd won by forcing him to abandon his station. They had no idea they'd just made the worst mistake of their military careers. Because now, Marcus Chen wasn't just defending his home, he was hunting the creatures that had destroyed it. And humans, as the galaxy was about to learn, were very good at hunting. 3 weeks after the destruction of Kepler Station, Marcus Chen sat in the pilot's chair of the salvaged Zephyrian frigate. Silent Strike, studying navigation data on his stolen displays. The ship's original crew had made the mistake of boarding the station's wreckage looking for survivors. They'd found one, but not the helpless victim they'd expected. Marcus flexed his left hand, feeling the alien neural interface grafted to his wrist pulse with each heartbeat. The Zephyrian technology was crude but effective, allowing him to control their ships directly through bioelectric impulses. The process of installing it had been excruciating, performed with nothing but emergency medical supplies and his own determination, but the pain had been worth it. He'd spent 2 days hiding in the station's destroyed sections, watching the Zephyrians salvage equipment and search for intel. When the boarding party from the Silent Strike had finally located him, they'd expected to find a broken human awaiting execution. Instead, they'd encountered something far more dangerous, a human who'd had 3 weeks to plan his revenge. The ship's original captain, a Zephyrian named Kesara, now floated in the medical bay's stasis pod. Marcus had kept him alive for questioning, extracting crucial information about Zephyrian military protocols, fleet movements, and communication codes. The rest of the crew hadn't been so fortunate. "Computer, display current position relative to the hegemony border," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying the slight hiss that the ship's translation software expected from Zephyrian officers. A holographic star map materialized above the control console. The Silent Strike was currently drifting in deep space, approximately 2 light-years from the nearest inhabited system. Perfect for what Marcus had planned. Over the past weeks, he'd monitored Zephyrian military communications using the frigate's encrypted channels. The destruction of Kepler Station had sent shock waves through their command structure. 8 warships lost to a single human had damaged their reputation and forced them to reconsider their expansion strategy. More importantly, it had made them angry. Very angry. Commander Vexitar had survived the battle aboard his damaged flagship, but his military career was effectively over. The Zephyrian High Command didn't tolerate failure, especially such spectacular and public defeat. According to intercepted communications, Vexitar had been stripped of his fleet command and assigned to a punishment detail, hunting down the human responsible for their humiliation. Marcus smiled grimly. The Zephyrians wanted to find him? Excellent. He'd make it easy for them. The frigate's communication array crackled to life as an incoming transmission reached the ship. Marcus activated the view screen, and the scaled face of a Zephyrian admiral appeared. Admiral Thexmore was one of the Empire's most decorated officers, known for his ruthless efficiency in suppressing rebellions. "All ships, this is Admiral Thexmore aboard the Dreadclaw. Intelligence reports indicate the human terrorist responsible for the Kepler incident is operating in this sector. Any vessel making contact is to report immediately. This criminal must be captured alive for public execution." The transmission ended, but Marcus had heard enough. A full admiral was leading the hunt for him personally, probably with significant fleet assets. The Zephyrians were committing serious resources to this operation, which meant his little stunt at Kepler Station had hurt them more than just losing a few ships. He began plotting a course toward the Regalis system, where Zephyrian intelligence reports indicated a major supply convoy would be passing through in 4 days. The convoy would be heavily escorted, making it a tempting target for the terrorist they were hunting. But Marcus wasn't interested in the convoy itself. He wanted its escorts. The Silent Strike dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Regalis system exactly 73 hours later. Marcus had spent the journey studying Zephyrian tactical manuals and ship specifications captured from the frigate's computer. Their military doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower and frontal assault, relying on superior technology to crush resistance before it could organize. That predictability would be their weakness. The supply convoy consisted of 12 massive cargo haulers escorted by 6 destroyers and 2 light cruisers. Standard protection for high-value shipments moving through contested space. The escorts were arranged in a defensive formation around the slower cargo ships, their sensors scanning space for potential threats. Marcus positioned the Silent Strike behind a small asteroid, using its shadow to mask his ship's energy signature. The frigate's stealth systems were more advanced than anything in the human fleet, allowing him to observe the convoy without being detected. Computer, analyze escort formation and identify tactical weaknesses. The ship's AI began processing the data, highlighting potential vulnerabilities in the Zephyrian formation. After several minutes, a tactical assessment appeared on Marcus's display. The convoy's rear guard consisted of 2 destroyers maintaining position approximately 50 kilometers behind the main formation. They were far enough back to respond to pursuit, but isolated enough to be vulnerable to a single attacker using stealth tactics. Marcus began powering up the frigate's weapons systems. The Silent Strike mounted 8 plasma cannons and a complement of guided missiles, enough firepower to gut a destroyer if properly applied. More importantly, it carried transponder codes identifying it as a friendly vessel to other Zephyrian ships. He would use their own technology against them. The attack began at maximum range, with the Silent Strike emerging from behind its asteroid cover and accelerating toward the convoy at full speed. The frigate's sensors painted the rearmost destroyer as hostile, and Marcus opened fire with everything he had. The Zephyrian crew never knew what hit them. Their shields collapsed under the concentrated plasma bombardment, and 3 missile impacts broke their ship's back. The destroyer exploded in a brilliant fireball that sent debris scattering across space. The second rearguard destroyer reacted quickly, turning to engage this unexpected threat. But Marcus was already gone, diving beneath the convoy's formation plane and using the cargo hauler's massive bulk to shield himself from return fire. Alarm sirens wailed across the Zephyrian communication channels as the convoy commander tried to understand what was happening. The attacking ship's transponder identified it as the frigate Silent Strike, which was supposed to be on patrol duty in a completely different sector. Silent Strike, respond immediately. You are firing on friendly vessels. Marcus keyed the communication system, modulating his voice to match Zephyrian speech patterns. Convoy leader, this is Captain Cassara of the Silent Strike. We are pursuing a human infiltrator who has sabotaged our navigation systems. Request immediate assistance in containing the threat. The confusion bought him precious seconds to line up his next attack. Marcus brought the frigate around in a tight turn, emerging from behind a cargo hauler to find himself directly beneath one of the escort cruisers. At point-blank range, his plasma cannons tore through the larger ship's belly armor like paper. The cruiser's reactor overloaded, creating a secondary explosion that damaged 2 nearby cargo haulers. The convoy's tight formation, designed for mutual protection, became a liability as burning wreckage scattered through their ranks. All ships break formation, the convoy commander shouted. Unknown attacker is using captured Zephyrian vessel, weapons free on the Silent Strike. But Marcus was already moving again, using the chaos and debris to mask his position. The remaining escort ships spread out to search for him, their sensors confused by the electromagnetic interference from their own burning vessels. He struck again minutes later, this time targeting a destroyer that had separated from the group to investigate a suspected contact. The Silent Strike's missiles caught the enemy ship while its attention was focused elsewhere, crippling its engines and leaving it dead in space. The convoy was falling apart. 3 escort vessels destroyed, 1 disabled, and panic spreading through the communication channels. The cargo haulers were accelerating desperately toward the system's hyperspace jump point, abandoning their protective formation in favor of speed. Marcus could have pursued them, picking off the fleeing ships one by one. But that wasn't his objective. He needed survivors, witnesses who would carry word of this attack back to Zephyrian High Command. Instead, he turned his attention to the disabled destroyer. The ship was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, but its crew was still alive. Marcus brought the Silent Strike alongside and activated the communication system. Zephyrian vessel, this is Captain Marcus Chen of the Human Colonial Fleet. You have 3 minutes to abandon ship before I finish what I started. The response was immediate and venomous. Human scum! You will pay for this atrocity. The Empire will hunt you to the ends of space. Marcus checked his chronometer. 2 minutes, 50 seconds. The destroyer's crew began evacuating immediately, their survival pods ejecting from the dying ship like seeds from a broken fruit. Marcus waited until the last pod had cleared the blast radius, then put 2 missiles into the destroyer's reactor core. As the explosion lit up space behind him, Marcus was already plotting his next move. The convoy's survivors would report that a single human pilot had destroyed most of their escort using a captured frigate. The story would spread through the Zephyrian fleet like wildfire, further damaging their morale and reputation. But more importantly, it would bring Admiral Thexmore running. The intercepted communications came 18 hours later. Admiral Thexmore's flagship, Dreadclaw, was en route to the Regalis system with a full battle fleet, 24 warships hunting for 1 stolen frigate. The admiral was furious, promising to personally execute the human terrorist who dared to use Zephyrian technology against its creators. Marcus studied the fleet composition data he'd extracted from military databases. The Dreadclaw was a massive dreadnought mounting enough firepower to level a planet's surface. Its escort included 6 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 4 assault carriers loaded with fighter squadrons. Against such overwhelming force, the Silent Strike would last perhaps 30 seconds in direct combat, which meant Marcus had no intention of fighting fair. He'd spent his youth studying military history, particularly the guerrilla campaigns that had shaped human warfare for centuries. The principles were universal: mobility over firepower, surprise over strength, patience over aggression. The Zephyrians had superior technology, but Marcus had something they lacked: experience fighting impossible odds. The Silent Strike jumped to hyperspace 3 hours before Admiral Thexmore's fleet arrived at Regalis. Marcus had left them a small gift: the disabled destroyer's sensor logs, modified to show the human ship heading toward the Nexus system. The false trail would keep the Admiral busy for several days while Marcus prepared his next move. But he wasn't running away. Marcus Chen was drawing the enemy deeper into his web, using their own anger and pride against them. The Zephyrians wanted to capture him alive for a public execution. They were welcome to try. After all, humans had been disappointing their enemies for millennia. The Nexus system was a barren collection of gas giants and asteroid fields, strategically worthless but perfect for what Marcus had planned. He spent 2 days studying the system's layout, identifying potential ambush sites and escape routes. The key was finding terrain that favored his smaller, more maneuverable ship while neutralizing the enemy's numerical advantage. The asteroid field orbiting Nexus Prime was ideal. Thousands of rocky fragments ranging from pebbles to small moons created a natural maze that would confuse sensors and limit long-range weapons engagement. More importantly, the field contained several metallic asteroids rich in iron and nickel, perfect for hiding his ship's energy signature. Marcus positioned the Silent Strike inside a hollowed-out asteroid, roughly the size of a city block. The frigate's mining lasers had carved out a perfect hiding spot, invisible to all but the most detailed scans. He powered down all non-essential systems, reducing the ship's emissions to background levels. Then he waited. Admiral Thexmore's fleet arrived in the system exactly when Marcus expected, their massive ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The Admiral wasted no time deploying his forces, sending destroyer squadrons to search each planet, while his main fleet remained in the system's center. "Attention, human criminal!" Thexmore's voice echoed across all communication frequencies. "I am Admiral Thexmore of the glorious Zephyrian Empire. You have committed acts of piracy and terrorism against our people. Surrender now and you will receive a quick death. Continue to resist, and I will ensure your suffering lasts for years." Marcus smiled as he watched the enemy fleet spread out across the system. The Admiral was confident, perhaps overconfident. His ships moved with the casual arrogance of predators who'd never encountered serious resistance. That would change very soon. The first target presented itself 6 hours later when a destroyer squadron began sweeping the asteroid field. 3 ships moving in close formation, their sensors probing the rocky debris for any sign of the fugitive human. They passed within 5 kilometers of Marcus's hiding spot without detecting him. He waited until they'd moved deeper into the field, far from mutual support, then powered up his weapons and engines simultaneously. The silent strike burst from its concealment like a striking serpent, plasma cannons blazing. The lead destroyer died instantly, its hull split open by concentrated fire at point-blank range. The second ship managed to get its shields up but couldn't maneuver effectively in the crowded asteroid field. Marcus used the terrain to his advantage, weaving between rocks while pouring fire into his target. The third destroyer tried to retreat, calling desperately for reinforcement. Marcus let it go. He needed witnesses to spread word of the attack. Admiral Thexmore's response was swift and predictable. The remaining destroyer squadrons converged on the asteroid field while fighter squadrons launched from the assault carriers. Within an hour, nearly 100 Zephyrian vessels were hunting through the rocks for one stolen frigate. But Marcus was already gone, using a predetermined route through the asteroids to reach a new hiding spot. The Zephyrians found only debris and radiation signatures that could have belonged to any ship that had passed through recently. The hunt continued for 3 days. Marcus struck again and again, appearing without warning to destroy isolated ships before vanishing back into the asteroid maze. Each attack was carefully planned to inflict maximum damage while minimizing his own risk. He targeted communication arrays, sensor clusters, and weapon systems, leaving the crews alive but helpless. Admiral Thexmore was growing desperate. His fleet had lost 8 ships to an enemy they couldn't even locate consistently. Worse, word of the attacks was spreading throughout the Zephyrian military. A single human was making their entire fleet look incompetent. "All ships, implement Protocol 7, the Admiral finally ordered. "Clear the entire asteroid field. I want every rock larger than a shuttlecraft destroyed." Marcus had been expecting this. The Zephyrians were abandoning precision in favor of brute force, planning to level the entire field rather than continue playing hide-and-seek. It was exactly the kind of heavy-handed response he'd been counting on, because while they'd been hunting him, Marcus had been preparing a surprise of his own. The silent strike had been busy during the lulls between attacks, using its mining equipment to hollow out dozens of asteroids throughout the field. Each excavated rock now contained a small fusion warhead, mining charges reprogrammed for military use. Marcus had essentially turned the entire asteroid field into one massive booby trap. As the Zephyrian fleet began its bombardment, Marcus triggered the charges remotely. The asteroid field erupted in a chain reaction of nuclear explosions that turned solid rock into superheated plasma. The shockwave caught 3 destroyer squadrons at close range, crushing their hulls and sending debris cascading through space. Admiral Thexmore watched in horror as his carefully planned attack turned into a disaster. 9 more ships destroyed, their crews vaporized by explosions they never saw coming. The human had anticipated their response and prepared accordingly. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, his voice shaky with disbelief, "we're detecting a single ship emerging from the far side of the explosion zone. It's the Silent Strike." On the main view screen, the stolen frigate appeared undamaged despite being at the center of the nuclear firestorm. It had somehow survived the chain reaction that had destroyed a significant portion of the Admiral's fleet. Marcus's voice crackled over the communication system, calm and professional, despite the chaos he'd just unleashed. "Admiral Thexmore, this is Captain Marcus Chen. I believe you wanted to speak with me." The transmission cut off before the Admiral could respond, and the Silent Strike jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the burning wreckage of 17 Zephyrian warships. Admiral Thexmore stared at the empty space where his enemy had been, scales flushed with rage and humiliation. A single human had destroyed nearly half his fleet and then casually announced his identity before escaping. It was the greatest military disaster in recent Zephyrian history. But Marcus Chen wasn't finished yet. Not even close. The hunt was just beginning. The Zephyrian High Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Thexmore finished his report. The massive circular room, carved from black volcanic stone and illuminated by floating energy spheres, normally echoed with the heated debates of Empire's rulers. Today, however, the 12 council members sat in stunned silence, their scales displaying various shades of disbelief and rage. Supreme Chancellor Zix Thara, her ancient scales bearing the ceremonial scars of 100 battles, fixed her yellow eyes on the disgraced Admiral. "Explain to us again, Admiral, how a single human destroyed 25 warships and escaped without significant damage." Thexmore's scales flushed deep purple with shame. "Supreme Chancellor, the human demonstrates tactical abilities far beyond normal parameters. He employs unconventional strategies that our doctrine does not address. His use of captured technology and guerrilla tactics—" "Excuses," hissed Councillor Vexcara, his massive frame rising from the curved bench. "You speak of a single human as if he possesses supernatural powers. Are we to believe that our mighty fleet cannot handle one primitive alien?" The Admiral's claws scraped against the stone floor as he struggled to control his anger. "With respect, Counselor, this human is not primitive. Our intelligence indicates he served in their military before taking the mining station position. His tactical knowledge combined with their species' apparent disregard for personal safety creates a dangerous combination." Supreme Chancellor Zix Thara studied the holographic display hovering above the chamber's center. It showed the recent attack sites: Kepler Station, the Regalis convoy route, and the Nexus system. 25 red marks indicated destroyed Zephyrian vessels, while a single blue dot represented the human's estimated current position. "This Marcus Chen has become more than a military problem," she said slowly. "Word of his victories is spreading throughout the Empire. Some of our subject species are beginning to whisper about human capabilities. There have been 3 minor rebellions in the past week alone. The implications were clear to every council member. The Zephyrian Empire maintained control through fear and the perception of invincibility. A single human proving that Zephyrian ships could be destroyed was undermining the psychological foundation of their rule. "We must capture this human alive," declared Councillor Thessamira, her scarred hide bearing testament to decades of combat service. "A public execution will restore our reputation and demonstrate the futility of resistance." "How?" Admiral Thexmore asked bitterly. "He strikes without warning and vanishes before we can respond. Our best hunting fleets cannot even locate his ship consistently. Every attempt to corner him results in more losses." Supreme Chancellor Zixathera rose from her throne, her massive form dominating the chamber. At nearly 4 meters tall, she was among the largest of her species, and her presence commanded absolute attention. "Then we will force him to come to us," she announced. "Admiral, you will cease these futile pursuit operations. Instead, we will create a situation that this Marcus Chen cannot ignore, bait so tempting that he will abandon his hit-and-run tactics for a direct confrontation." The Admiral's scales shifted to a questioning orange. "What kind of bait, Supreme Chancellor?" "Human civilians." The word sent a chill through the chamber. Several council members shifted uncomfortably, their scales betraying unease despite their aggressive rhetoric. The Zephyrian Empire had many faults, but they generally avoided targeting non-combatants. It was considered both strategically inefficient and politically dangerous. "Supreme Chancellor," Councillor Vexcara said carefully, "such an action might provoke the human colonial government into open warfare. Our intelligence suggests their military capabilities are more advanced than we initially estimated." Zixthera's laugh was like grinding stone. "Let them come. We outnumber their entire fleet 10-1. But this Marcus Chen seems to possess an irrational attachment to protecting others of his species. We will use that weakness against him." She activated a holographic display showing the border regions between human and Zephyrian space. Several civilian settlements appeared as green dots scattered across multiple star systems. "The mining colony on Tethys Prime has approximately 8,000 human civilians," she continued. "It is lightly defended and strategically unimportant. We will attack the colony and announce our intention to execute the prisoners unless Marcus Chen surrenders himself within 1 week." Admiral Thexamore studied the tactical display with growing unease. "Supreme Chancellor, if Chen refuses to surrender, we will be forced to follow through with the threat. Executing 8,000 civilians will generate significant political backlash throughout the galaxy." "Then ensure he does not refuse," Zixthera replied coldly. "You have studied this human's psychological profile. Would he allow innocents to die for his freedom?" The Admiral's scales dimmed as he considered the question. Every report about Marcus Chen emphasized his protective instincts and strong moral code. At Kepler Station, he had stayed behind to maintain the navigation beacon for emergency vessels. During his subsequent attacks, he had consistently avoided civilian casualties and even allowed military survivors to escape. A man like that would not abandon 8,000 innocents to save himself. "No, Supreme Chancellor," Thexamore admitted reluctantly. "He will come." "Excellent. Prepare your fleet, Admiral. This time, Marcus Chen will face the full might of the Zephyrian Empire with nowhere to run." 3 days later, the mining colony on Tethys Prime watched in terror as Zephyrian warships emerged from hyperspace above their world. The 30-ship fleet, led by Admiral Thexamore's rebuilt armada, surrounded the planet like a closing fist. The colony's defense platforms were swept away in minutes, their light weapons useless against military-grade shields and armor. Assault shuttles landed in the main settlement, disgorging hundreds of Zephyrian soldiers who rounded up civilians with ruthless efficiency. Colony Administrator Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus despite sharing his surname, stood in the town square as Zephyrian troops herded her people into detention areas. The alien's yellow eyes reflected no mercy, only cold calculation. Admiral Thexamore materialized as a hologram above the square, his massive form towering over the frightened humans. "Citizens of Tethys Prime, you are now prisoners of the Zephyrian Empire. Your capture serves a single purpose, to draw out the terrorist Marcus Chen." Sarah stepped forward, her administrative training overriding her fear. "Admiral, these people are civilians. They have nothing to do with your conflict with Captain Chen. I demand you release them immediately under the Galactic Convention on—" "Silence, human," Thexamore's voice boomed across the square. Your demands are irrelevant. You will remain here as bait for your champion. When he arrives to rescue you, he will face justice for his crimes against the Empire." The hologram shifted to show a broader view of the Zephyrian fleet. 30 warships in perfect formation, weapons trained on the planet's surface. Marcus Chen, we know you monitor our communications. You have 7 days to surrender yourself at these coordinates. If you fail to comply, we will begin executing prisoners at a rate of 100 per hour until you appear. The transmission ended, leaving the colonists in stunned silence. Most had heard stories about the mysterious Captain Chen and his war against the Zephyrians, but few had expected to become pawns in their conflict. "What do we do?" whispered Dr. James Morrison, the colony's chief medical officer. "Do you think he'll actually come?" Sarah looked up at the alien ships hanging in the sky like mechanical vultures. "If the stories are true, then yes, he'll come." The response arrived exactly 18 hours later. Marcus Chen's face appeared on every communication screen throughout the Zephyrian fleet, his expression calm despite the desperate circumstances. Behind him, the interior of the silent strike was visible, control panels flickering with alien displays, warning lights casting strange shadows across his features. "Admiral Thexmore," Marcus said, his voice carrying across space with crystalline clarity. "I received your invitation. Attacking civilians is a new low, even for your empire." The Admiral's scaled face appeared in a split-screen display, his satisfaction obvious. "You will surrender unconditionally, human. No tricks, no weapons, no attempts at deception. Present yourself at the coordinates I transmitted, alone and defenseless, or watch your people die." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand your terms, Admiral, and I accept them." The admission sent shock waves through both fleets. Zephyrian officers exchanged incredulous glances while human colonists held their breath in disbelief. The legendary Marcus Chen was actually going to surrender. "However," Marcus continued, his tone remaining conversational, "I should mention something about those coordinates you selected for our meeting." Admiral Thexmore's eyes narrowed. "What about them?" "Well, they're positioned directly above the planet's magnetic pole. Tethys Prime has an unusually strong magnetosphere, about 3 times normal intensity due to its iron-rich core. Very beautiful aurora displays, I'm told." The Admiral gestured irritably. "Your point, human?" Marcus smiled for the first time since the transmission began. "My point, Admiral, is that strong magnetic fields play hell with sensor systems, especially Zephyrian sensors, which rely heavily on quantum entanglement arrays. I've been studying your technology for quite some time now." A chill of realization swept through the Zephyrian command crew. Their sensors had been experiencing intermittent malfunctions since arriving in the system, minor glitches attributed to stellar interference. They hadn't considered that someone might be exploiting those weaknesses deliberately. "You see," Marcus continued, "while you've been busy threatening civilians, I've been preparing a few surprises of my own. Did you really think I would face your entire fleet with just one stolen frigate?" Admiral Thexmore's scales flushed crimson with rage and sudden fear. "Sensors, full sweep of the surrounding space. Find his backup forces." The response was immediate and terrifying. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. At least 40 contacts, possibly more. They're using the magnetic interference to mask their positions." The tactical display exploded with new contacts as Marcus's hidden fleet revealed itself. Sleek shapes emerged from the shadow of asteroids, the concealment of planetary rings, and the blinding glare of the system's star. Each ship bore the distinctive angular design of human military vessels. "Allow me to introduce the 7th Fleet of the Human Colonial Navy," Marcus announced. "They've been very eager to meet you, Admiral, especially since you started threatening civilians." Admiral Thexmore stared at the overwhelming force now surrounding his ships. The humans had somehow assembled nearly 50 warships without detection, using the system's natural interference and their superior stealth technology. His own fleet was outnumbered almost 2-1. "Impossible," he breathed. "Our intelligence indicated the human fleet was scattered across multiple sectors. You could not have assembled this force without our knowledge." "Your intelligence was wrong, Admiral," Marcus replied. "We've been planning this operation since the first attack on Kepler Station. Every ship you destroyed, every convoy you raided, every system you occupied, we've been watching and learning. The largest human ship, a massive dreadnought twice the size of any Zephyrian vessel, moved into position directly above Tethys Prime. Its weapon ports were armed and ready, but the guns remained trained on the alien fleet rather than the planet below. "This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Human Colonial Navy," a new voice announced. "Admiral Thexmore, you and your fleet are surrounded and outgunned. Release the civilian prisoners immediately and prepare to surrender." Thexmore's claws scraped against his command chair as he processed the impossible situation. His carefully planned trap had become his own doom. And the mysterious Marcus Chen had orchestrated it all. The human hadn't been running from superior forces. He'd been leading them into position for this moment. "Never," the Zephyrian admiral snarled. "The Empire does not surrender to inferior species. We will fight to the last ship before accepting defeat from humans." "I was hoping you'd say that," Marcus said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "You see, Admiral, you made one critical error in your planning. You assumed that humans value individual survival above all else, that we would sacrifice our principles to save our own lives." His image shifted as he stood up from the pilot's chair, revealing the full interior of the silent strike. The ship's interior had been modified extensively, with additional weapon systems and what appeared to be a massive explosive device mounted where the cargo bay should be. "But humans are different, Admiral. When you threaten our families, our friends, our innocent civilians, we don't negotiate. We don't compromise. We become something you can't understand or predict." The explosive device began to glow with increasing intensity, its energy readings spiking across every sensor in the system. Admiral Thexmore realized with growing horror what the human intended to do. "You're bluffing," he said desperately. "You would not destroy yourself just to take us with you." Marcus's smile was cold as winter starlight. "Admiral, you really don't understand humans at all." The silent strike began accelerating directly toward the Zephyrian flagship, its modified fusion reactor overloading in a carefully controlled fashion. The frigate was essentially a guided missile now, carrying enough explosive force to vaporize everything within a 50-kilometer radius. "All human ships, this is Marcus Chen," he announced calmly. "Execute Order 66. Protect the civilians at all costs." The human fleet opened fire simultaneously, their advanced weapons tearing into Zephyrian shields with devastating effect. But Admiral Thexmore barely noticed the battle beginning around him. His attention was fixed entirely on the approaching frigate and the human pilot who had become his nemesis. "Stop!" Thexmore screamed into his communicator. "I will release the prisoners. I surrender. Stop your attack!" But Marcus's ship continued its death run, weapon systems blazing as it carved through the Zephyrian formation. The Admiral watched helplessly as his carefully assembled fleet began to disintegrate under the combined assault of human firepower and Marcus Chen's suicidal determination. "Computer," Marcus said quietly, "arm all warheads and prepare for final detonation. Time to impact, 30 seconds. The communication channel remained open, allowing both fleets to hear his final words. "Admiral Thexmore, you wanted to know what makes humans dangerous? It's simple. We never forgive, we never forget, and we never give up. 20 seconds to impact." The Silent Strike's hull began to glow from atmospheric friction as it plunged toward the Zephyrian flagship. Point defense systems tried desperately to stop the incoming projectile. But Marcus's ship shrugged off their fire like raindrops. "Please," Admiral Thexmore whispered, his proud facade finally cracking under the weight of approaching death. "I have a family, children who will never see their father return." 10 seconds to impact. Marcus's voice softened slightly, carrying a note of genuine sadness. "So did the colonists you threatened to murder, Admiral. So did the crews of every ship you've destroyed in this war." 5 seconds. "Tell your empire," Marcus said, "that humans remember everything." The Silent Strike struck the Dreadclaw amidships at nearly 15% of light speed. The combined impact and explosion created a miniature star that briefly outshone Tethys Prime's sun. When the light faded, both ships had simply ceased to exist, along with 3 nearby Zephyrian escorts that had been caught in the blast radius. The surviving Zephyrian fleet found itself leaderless and surrounded by victorious human warships. Without their admiral and flagship, organized resistance crumbled within minutes. Ship after ship surrendered, their crews too shocked by Marcus Chen's sacrifice to continue fighting. On the planet's surface, the colonial prisoners watched in awe as Zephyrian soldiers laid down their weapons and awaited human rescue forces. The brief battle had ended in complete victory for Earth's fleet, but the cost had been enormous. Dr. Morrison stood beside Administrator Sarah Chen as human shuttles began landing in the colony's main square. "He actually did it," the doctor said quietly. "He saved us all." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Marcus Chen. I wonder if we'll ever know what kind of man he really was." Above them, the human fleet maintained its protective formation while rescue operations commenced. Admiral Mitchell's voice echoed across all communication channels, carrying a message that would soon reach every corner of known space. "This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Human Colonial Navy. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that humanity protects its own. Any species that threatens human civilians will face the same fate as Admiral Thexmore and his fleet." The message was clear and would be remembered for generations. Humanity had announced itself as a major power, and they had done so in the most dramatic way possible, through the sacrifice of one man who refused to let innocents die. Marcus Chen was gone, but his legacy would live forever. Or so everyone believed. In the debris field where the 2 flagships had died, automated salvage probes began their grim work of cataloging the destruction. Most of the wreckage was twisted metal and cooling plasma, but deep within the expanding cloud of debris, something unexpected appeared on their sensors. A single escape pod, heavily damaged but intact, drifting silently through space. Its emergency beacon was offline, its hull scarred by incredible heat and radiation, but life support was still functioning. Inside, barely conscious and badly injured, Marcus Chen opened his eyes and smiled grimly. The Zephyrians wanted to hunt him down. He'd give them something to really worry about. After all, reports of his death had been greatly exaggerated. 6 months after the Battle of Tethys Prime, the Zephyrian Empire was crumbling from within. What had begun as a simple territorial expansion had evolved into a galaxy-wide conflict that they were steadily losing. The destruction of Admiral Thexmore's fleet had been only the beginning of their troubles. Deep in the Empire's core systems, Supreme Chancellor Zix Thara stood before a holographic star map that told the story of their decline. Red markers indicated lost territories, abandoned outposts, and successful rebellion movements. The blue markers representing secure Zephyrian holdings had shrunk by nearly 40%. "Explain to me," she said to her assembled council, "how one dead human continues to destroy our empire." Counselor Vex Kara, now serving as acting military commander, shifted uncomfortably. "Supreme Chancellor, The humans' martyrdom has inspired resistance movements throughout our territory. Subject species that accepted our rule for decades are now openly rebelling. They speak of Marcus Chen as if he were some sort of mythical hero. Mythology, spat Counselor Thessamira, her scales dark with frustration. They worship a corpse, while our fleets patrol empty space searching for ghosts. But Zixthara's attention was fixed on a different pattern in the tactical display. Over the past 6 months, 17 Zephyrian installations had been destroyed by unknown attackers. The strikes were surgical, precise, and devastatingly effective. Each target had been chosen for maximum strategic impact while minimizing civilian casualties. These attacks, she said slowly, they follow Chen's tactical patterns exactly: hit-and-run strikes, exploitation of terrain advantages, psychological warfare designed to demoralize our forces. Supreme Chancellor, Vexkara protested, Marcus Chen is dead. We detected no escape pods from his ship, and nothing could have survived that explosion. Our own scientists confirmed the energy readings. Zixthara's claws scraped against the holographic controls, zooming in on the most recent attack site. The Xerion shipyard had been one of their most heavily defended installations, protected by a full squadron of battleships and an array of orbital defense platforms. 3 days ago, it had been reduced to scrap metal and cooling plasma by an unknown attacker. Then explain how someone with intimate knowledge of Chen's methods is systematically dismantling our infrastructure, she demanded. Either the humans survived, or we face an even more dangerous possibility. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. What possibility? Thessamira asked. That humanity has analyzed his techniques and trained others to replicate them, Zixthara replied grimly. If that is the case, then we do not face a single exceptional individual. We face an entire species learning to fight like Marcus Chen. The implications were terrifying. One human using guerrilla tactics had already proved devastating to their forces. If Earth's military was training hundreds or thousands of operatives to employ the same methods, the Zephyrian Empire faced extinction. Unknown to the debating council members, their worst fears had already been realized. At that very moment, Marcus Chen was very much alive and preparing for his next strike. The escape pod that had saved his life had been recovered by a human special operations team specifically tasked with retrieving him. His apparent death had been carefully staged to provide psychological cover for the larger campaign to come. Marcus floated in the zero gravity of the stealth ship, Phantom Strike, reviewing intelligence reports from across Zephyrian space. His body still bore scars from the Tethys Prime explosion, burns that would never fully heal, artificial organs replacing those destroyed by radiation exposure, cybernetic implants compensating for damaged neural pathways. But his mind remained sharp, and his determination had only grown stronger. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Voss approached, her magnetic boots clicking against the deck. We've received confirmation that Operation Broken Chain is ready to commence. All 7 strike teams are in position. Marcus nodded, studying the holographic display that showed Zephyrian space divided into operational zones. Each zone contained a strike team led by an officer trained in his methods. Hit-and-run tactics, psychological warfare, and the exploitation of enemy weaknesses. They had spent months preparing for this coordinated assault. Remember, Marcus addressed his communications officer, absolute radio silence until the attacks commence. We hit all 7 targets simultaneously, then extract before they can coordinate a response. The targets had been chosen carefully. 3 major military bases, 2 weapons manufacturing facilities, a strategic command center, and the Empire's primary communication relay station. Destroying them simultaneously would cripple Zephyrian coordination and force them to retreat from dozens of contested systems. But Marcus's personal target was different. While his teams struck military installations, he would be attacking something far more valuable: the Zephyrian High Council itself. The council chambers on Zephyr Prime were theoretically impregnable. The planet was the Empire's capital, protected by orbital fortresses and a massive fleet. The council building itself was shielded by energy barriers and guarded by the Empire's elite soldiers. No enemy force had ever successfully attacked the homeworld, which was exactly why Marcus intended to do it. "Sir," the navigation officer called out, "we're approaching the outer sensor perimeter. Stealth systems are holding steady." The Phantom Strike was humanity's most advanced stealth vessel, incorporating technology reverse-engineered from captured Zephyrian ships and improved with human innovations. Its hull was virtually invisible to enemy sensors, and its crew specialized in infiltration operations. Marcus made his way to the ship's small hangar bay, where his personal gear waited. The stealth suit was a marvel of engineering: adaptive camouflage, built-in life support, and weapon systems integrated into the fabric itself. Combined with his enhanced physical capabilities and tactical experience, it made him a nearly unstoppable infiltrator. 47 minutes to planetary insertion, Voss announced over the intercom. "All teams confirm ready status." Marcus sealed his helmet and activated the suit's systems. Through his enhanced vision, he could see the massive bulk of Zephyr Prime growing larger ahead of them. The planet's surface was covered in gleaming cities and industrial complexes, the heart of an empire that had terrorized countless worlds. Soon, that empire would learn the true meaning of fear. The attack began at precisely 0300 Galactic Standard Time. Across 7 different star systems, human strike teams emerged from stealth and struck their targets with devastating precision. Marcus's protégés had learned their lessons well, employing his tactics with ruthless efficiency. At the Corvan military base, Commander Jessica Park led her team in a lightning assault that destroyed the facility's entire fighter squadron while it was still grounded. The Zephyrians never even managed to sound an alarm before their base was reduced to burning wreckage. In the Nexus system, Lieutenant Colonel David Kim's forces penetrated the weapons facility's defenses using captured Zephyrian codes, planting fusion charges throughout the complex before vanishing back into space. The explosion was visible from 3 neighboring star systems. But the crown jewel of the operation was occurring on Zephyr Prime itself. Marcus had infiltrated the capital city using maintenance tunnels and service corridors, his stealth suit rendering him invisible to security systems. The High Council was in emergency session, desperately trying to coordinate a response to the attacks occurring throughout their territory. They had no idea death was walking through their corridors. Marcus paused outside the council chambers, listening through his suit's audio pickups as the Zephyrian leaders debated their response. Supreme Chancellor Zixathara was arguing for total war against humanity, while others advocated for negotiation or strategic retreat. "The humans must be taught their place," Zixathara declared, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber doors. "We will glass every one of their worlds until they submit to our authority." "And how do you propose we accomplish that?" Councillor Vexkara shot back. "Half our fleet has been destroyed or damaged by these terrorist attacks. Our subject species are in open revolt. We barely have enough ships to defend our own territory." Marcus activated his suit's recording systems, capturing every word for later broadcast. The galaxy would hear the Zephyrian leadership's true intentions, their willingness to commit genocide rather than accept defeat. "Then we will make an example," Zixathara continued. "Select one human colony, a major population center. Destroy it completely. Show them the cost of defying our empire." That was enough. Marcus had heard all he needed to justify what came next. The chamber doors exploded inward as Marcus detonated shaped charges he'd placed while listening to their conversation. Smoke and debris filled the air as emergency alarms wailed throughout the building. Through the chaos, a single figure in advanced combat armor strode into the chamber. "Greetings, Supreme Chancellor," Marcus said, his voice amplified by his suit's speakers. I believe you've been looking for me. The Zephyrian guards reacted instantly, raising their weapons and firing at the intruder. But Marcus was already moving, his enhanced reflexes and stealth capabilities making him almost impossible to track. Plasma bolts passed through empty air, while return fire from his integrated weapons dropped guards with surgical precision. Supreme Chancellor Zix Thara backed against the far wall, her scales shifting through a rainbow of terror and rage. Impossible. You're dead. We confirmed your death at Tethys Prime. Marcus's helmet retracted, revealing his scarred but very much alive face. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, Chancellor, though I have to say the funeral was quite moving. Several species sent representatives. He advanced slowly, his weapons trained on the remaining council members. Most had fled during the initial confusion, but 3 remained frozen in terror. These were beings who had ordered the deaths of billions, who ruled through fear and intimidation, now face to face with their own mortality. You cannot escape this planet, Zix Thara said, trying to project authority despite her obvious fear. My fleets will hunt you down and— Your fleets are a little busy right now, Marcus interrupted. 7 simultaneous attacks tend to scatter command and control efforts. By my estimate, you have perhaps 30 minutes before anyone realizes what's happening here. He activated a holographic display showing the ongoing strikes across Zephyrian space. Each target was marked in red, indicating successful destruction or significant damage. The Supreme Chancellor watched in growing horror as the scope of the coordinated assault became clear. This is impossible. You are one human. How could you coordinate such an operation? Marcus smiled grimly. Chancellor, you made a fundamental error in understanding my species. You assumed I was exceptional, a unique individual whose death would end your problems. But humans learn from each other. We share knowledge, adapt tactics, and improve our methods. He gestured to the tactical display. Every officer leading those strike teams trained under my instruction. They've studied your empire's weaknesses, learned your tactical patterns, and developed countermeasures for your technology. I'm not one human anymore. I'm one of thousands. The implications struck Zix Thara like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just produced one dangerous individual, they had systematically weaponized his knowledge and experience. Every human military officer was potentially another Marcus Chen. What do you want? She asked desperately. Territory, resources, we can negotiate. I want justice, Marcus replied simply. You threatened to murder civilians to capture me. You plan to commit genocide against my species. You've enslaved dozens of worlds and terrorized countless innocent beings. He raised his weapon, targeting the Supreme Chancellor directly. The galaxy will be a better place without the Zephyrian Empire. Wait! Vex Kara stepped forward, his hands raised in surrender. If you kill us, you become no better than what you fight against. Your own species values justice, correct? Then grant us a trial, allow us to face judgment for our crimes. Marcus paused, considering the words. The Zephyrian was right. Executing prisoners without trial would make him little different from the tyrants he fought against. But these beings had shown no mercy to their victims, had planned genocide against his entire species. Very well, he said finally. You'll have your trial, but it won't be in a Zephyrian court. He activated his communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies throughout the capital city. Citizens of Zephyr Prime, this is Captain Marcus Chen of the Human Colonial Navy. Your government has fallen. The High Council is in custody and will face trial for war crimes before a galactic tribunal. The broadcast sparked immediate chaos throughout the planet. Some Zephyrian citizens fled in terror, while others celebrated the fall of their oppressive leaders. Military units found themselves without orders as the command structure collapsed. Marcus herded the surviving council members toward the chamber's emergency exit, where his extraction team waited. The phantom strike had landed on the building's roof, its stealth systems still active despite being in the heart of enemy territory. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Voss reported as they boarded the ship, "all strike teams report mission success. Enemy communications are in complete disarray. Estimated time before organized response, 4 hours minimum." More than enough time to escape to human space with their prisoners. As the stealth ship lifted off from Zephyr Prime, Marcus looked back at the capital city sprawling below them. Smoke rose from government buildings as riots broke out in the streets. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for decades was tearing itself apart. "Set course for Earth," Marcus ordered, "and transmit our mission recordings to all major news networks. The galaxy deserves to know what really happened here." The journey to human space took 3 days, during which time the full scope of Operation Broken Chain became clear. The 7 simultaneous strikes had achieved complete success, destroying critical Zephyrian infrastructure and killing or capturing dozens of high-ranking military officers. More importantly, they had shattered the Empire's aura of invincibility. Subject species that had endured Zephyrian rule for generations rose up in coordinated rebellions. Without central command and control, the Empire's scattered fleets found themselves fighting dozens of separate conflicts while trying to maintain control over their core territories. Marcus spent the voyage preparing for what would be the most important trial in galactic history. The captured council members would face charges of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings before a joint tribunal representing 12 different species. Their convictions were virtually guaranteed, given the evidence against them. But the trial's real purpose was symbolic. Humanity was announcing its emergence as a major galactic power, one committed to justice and the protection of innocent beings. The galaxy would remember that when faced with tyranny, humans didn't just fight back. They systematically dismantled their enemies and brought them to justice. "Sir," the communications officer announced as they approached the Sol system, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Mitchell requests immediate debrief upon arrival." Marcus nodded, settling into his command chair for the final approach to Earth. Through the view screen, he could see the blue-white marble of his home world growing larger ahead of them. It looked peaceful from space, showing no signs of the military juggernaut it had become during his months of warfare. "Captain," Voss said quietly, "what happens now? The Zephyrian Empire is collapsing, but there are other threats out there, other species that might challenge humanity." Marcus smiled as Earth's orbital defense platforms came into view, massive structures bristling with the most advanced weaponry human science could produce. Each platform was equipped with technology reverse-engineered from captured alien ships and improved with human innovations. "Let them come, Sarah," he said simply. "Let them come." Behind them, the Zephyrian Empire burned as rebellion spread from world to world. The species that had once conquered half the galaxy was learning a painful lesson about the consequences of underestimating humanity. Marcus Chen had started as a lone human defending a mining station. He had become something far more dangerous, the symbol of humanity's emergence as a galactic superpower. And any species foolish enough to threaten human civilians would discover why their predecessors had made the mistake of calling humans primitive. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and its name was humanity. The age of human dominance had begun, forged in the crucible of one man's refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds. Marcus Chen had taught the galaxy a simple truth that would echo through the ages: never underestimate a human with nothing left to lose.